had seen O-sensei in 1965 when I was there studying Japanese at Keio University. Bob Frazier, my classmate, dragged me off to the dojo. And I went just to shut him up. I was tired of hearing him talk about this old guy who could throw people without touching them and whatnot. And but he took me off to the dojo, and I went and I watched, and O-sensei taught that class. He did all the amazing things that Bob told me that he could do. And it just literally blew my mind. I had this sensation of, the sensation that my brain blew out the top of my head. It hung over me like particles of a sandstorm or something. And I just was translated to a different view. I could tell that he had some understanding of the nature of reality that was completely beyond anything I had ever even had a hint existed. And after he finished his demonstration, then he left the mat. This was at the old dojo, not the concrete one that exists now. And just before he left the room, he turned, and I thought he looked at me. Later people said he was nearsighted at that time. He might have just been gazing off. But my experience was that he looked at me, and I felt a kind of beam of light come from him, and it entered my belly. But it didn't feel like anything frightening or intrusive. Everything just seemed to soften and open up, and I had this weird sensation that my life completely made sense up to that point, and that Aikido would be my path. And then I had this funny feeling the cloud kind of went back in, and my brain went back inside my head, but it was settled in a different pattern than before. And it was a very definitive moment in my life. I determined right then that I would do Aikido. And then I made the decision I was right at the end of my year as an exchange student in Japan, so I made the decision to come back to the University of Washington and complete my degree program in Japanese and study everything I could on every aspect of Japan before I went back to start training, so that I would have a kind of foundation and a context. And because I wanted to understand Aikido, and I wanted to learn at a deep level and not just work out or have I wasn't a physical person. I had no attraction to sports or working out or physical movement or anything. But Aikido just caught me as something extremely profound, and I wanted to prepare myself as best I could to learn it. So then I went back in '68, and I started just in December. I saw O-sensei only a few more times before he died, and but each time was very high impact and it's just stuck with me through my life. At that time, when I first started training, Yamaguchi sensei, Tohei Akira sensei, Arikawa sensei, Kobayashi Yasuo sensei, Saotome sensei, Tohei Koichi sensei, and Saito sensei all taught at Hombu Dojo. So that was my week's lineup of teachers. So that was pretty incredible experience to be able to train with all of those people. So I had started my training at Hombu Dojo in December of 1968, and I trained about, 68, about a year and a half or so, I think. I remember it was about a year after O-sensei died that I took a trip down to the Kii Peninsula with a friend of mine. It was a kind of martial hiking trip. And he wanted to go see Shingu, and so we stopped in and met Hikitsuchi sensei and took the class. And I was very stunned, because at that time I had gotten my training up to where I was going about 5 hours a day, and I kept in motion 5 hours a day. And then when I went to Shingu, I was wiped out in about the first 10-15 minutes of class, and I really couldn't figure what was happening. It was so intense. The energy was so intense. The movement was so fast, and I never seemed to have any break in the pace. The only time of rest was when we sat down and the teacher demonstrated a new technique or talked about the philosophy of Aikido or O-sensei. And so I was very surprised about that. The other thing, too, is that all of my movement seemed wrong. Every time I moved, I would get punched with a temi. I seemed to be open all the time. And it was very disconcerting because, you know, when you're young in Aikido, you go through, you know nothing, and then you go through a period where you get kind of cocky and you think you know something. And I was just right at that really annoying period when I went to Shingu for my first trip there. And so it was very humiliating to wear out so fast at the beginning of class and always seem to have somebody's fist in my face every time I tried to move. And but I was quite fascinated with what was going on, and so I started going back there to train when I had breaks from my work teaching English in Tokyo. And even though the majority of my training was spent at Hombu Dojo and I had many fine teachers there, there was something about the atmosphere and the particular style of training in Shingu and Hikitsuchi Sensei's approach which had a very disproportionate influence on me, considering I didn't spend hardly any time there in comparison to the amount of time that I spent at Hombu Dojo. I myself was a very, very shy person, and I had gone to Japan in part because I felt quite alienated from my own culture, and I felt at home and comfortable in Japan. I was really extremely shy, especially physically shy. I didn't even like people to give me a friendly pat on the shoulder. I really kept myself apart. And I think I tried to keep myself kind of sheltered off from other people. In Aikido, you can't do good Aikido from that place. You know, you have to really offer yourself and accept the offering of the other person in order to do Aikido well. I didn't think of it in those, you know, I didn't articulate it as such at that time. I just noticed that after a year, 2 years of training, when I came back to the States to visit my mom, I had much more sense of being comfortable here than I had before. I didn't seem to, my skin didn't crawl if people got too close to me, and I just seemed to be more at ease in my own body. So I began to notice that Aikido really offered a lot. It just on every level. It just seemed to teach people on every level. It's in Shingu. The emphasis in the training was that you projected a very tight beam of your energy at your partner as a kind of a temi, as a connective device. And as you trained back and forth, you never let up this key connection with your partner. So there were none of the ordinary rest points in your training, no fixing of the gis or anything like that. You would just get up, throw the person down, they would throw you down, you would throw them down, back, forth, like this, over and over again with no let-up. When we began working on this in Shingu, what was emphasized was the fact that you would collect your power or your energy into one point to begin with. So Nage would begin almost as an Iai throw where the knees would come together, and we would concentrate that point and we would focus our ki at this line of vulnerability on our partner. And we always had to really remember this line of vulnerability. The idea was that if our partner raised their hand to strike us, then by doing that, they opened themselves up to the counter, and they made themselves vulnerable. So we wanted to elicit them. We wanted to teach them this is the area of vulnerability. So we would go up in a way that caused the person to deflect our movement. However, if we went in far, suddenly we would be taken over because we had aggressed into their space. If we were just kind of fuzzy out here, they would come in. And throws on her flat down because it wasn't anything real. So we had to really project our energy, okay? But we could not aggress into their space physically. So it was very, very interesting training. It took me a long time to get this concept because at Homba Dojo, Shomanuchi started with an overhead strike, and I couldn't cope with the idea that as Nage, I had to move first. But it produced certain understanding that in relationship with another human being, connecting with them, I had to always look for the places that my partner and myself were vulnerable. And my point of view had to be, as Nage, to teach that aggression was self-destructive. Aggression opened you up to your own destruction. And so my first job is to indicate an opening, okay, or to offer an opening to them, one or the other, so that we could engage in our mutual examination of how to relate in a way where we were independent but in communication. So with this, Nage would always move first, and then moving the person down would move in. The other thing is that you don't release your key connection at this point, but keeping physical contact with the person, you begin to move back alongside, gradually opening them up and extending to their center again as they came up, so that they never really got back. Now here's a very vulnerable point because a flexible person could kick you or hit you right here, so you couldn't hang out at that point. So after having put them down here, coming back up, we had to immediately move off the line and down here. So Tenkan became not a matter of moving in and around like that, but in Shingu, Tenkan is here, like this. And so it meant that we were always working on the edge of the person's power and never going directly into their space. Pam? Okay. Now, Pam came up with her hand up. Okay. So in Shingu, if she came up with her hand up, this would be the result of that. Okay. But if I come up with my hand up, she can take it over and end up doing ikkyo on me. But if I just project, okay, then I catch that energy and put her down. And then as she comes up, I keep connection here. Of course, usually you do it 4 times a piece. But when the technique transferred, if Uke was not on top of it for becoming Nage, if Nage felt Uke just wasn't there, they never let him become Nage. So it was not uncommon in my own case when I started training that I would go an entire class and I would never throw anybody, regardless of whether I was supposed to be Uke or Nage. Okay? When you start Tenkan, you have the opportunity to see your partner as somebody who has given you an incredible gift. The gift is their body, their connection with you. And because of that, you have an opportunity to begin the movement of Aikido. In Aikido, we're working to have the most correct connection with the partner that we can have. This connection is between my center and my partner's center. It's not between my wrist and her hand. Therefore, I offer my hand toward her center. Pam? When you offer your hand to your partner for doing Tenkan, you offer to their center, right? Sometimes people are a little careless. They offer over here, and immediately you're open. for attack. Or if you get too over here, you can be taken over, you can be attacked, or the technique can be taken over. So just offer to their center and have within yourself a kind of large view where it's not focused narrowly on your partner. Your partner is included in your view of the world. Your feeling is that center to center is in communication, and you feel your heart kind of melt. It just opens, okay? Because your partner, by coming up to grab your hand, has given you the gift that you need in order to practice your Aikido. They've offered their body to you so that you can connect with them on all these levels, and you can then practice one element of this path that O-sensei has given us. It's important that you don't try to go into your partner's space. Once I start to come in, okay, you're going to put my eye out there for a minute. Once you come in, you start to become vulnerable yourself. If you place yourself in a position of vulnerability, you can't teach the other person. Okay, so you have to remain in your own space. What we want to do in Tenkan is accomplish several things. We want to understand where our space is and where our partner's space is. We want to know how we connect to our partner in a way that welcomes them and allows them to come to ourselves. Our space is where we're strongest. Therefore, we want them unbalanced, okay, and falling into the edge of our space, coming toward our center, which then moves out of the way. Nage is not passively waiting for Uke. Nage controls the interaction to begin with. When you look at this person, you think, thank you. That's what should always be in your heart in relationship to your partner. Thank you for coming up. Thank you for helping me out. Okay? Offer to the center. Allow everything to ground. Turn past so you both have the potential to see something together. Right now, we're looking in opposite directions and we're on opposite sides, and we have different places. But once I do Tenkan, we're looking at the same view of the world. And we're in the same place. Our bodies are very similarly positioned. From here, the future is open in terms of our coordinated movement together. So we go from potential enemies on opposite sides of a border to, oh, that's what you see. That's what you're looking at. We're connected in together. But I never lose my own center or my ability to successfully control the motion between us. If I say control the motion, it sounds like I'm dominating my partner. But in a good Aikido technique, the technique controls both of you. We'd work best in Tenkan and all of our Aikido techniques when we remain balanced and grounded and open and accepting. Then we can always find a free place to move to. One aspect of Shingu training was that the Ukemi was a bit different in that very, very few techniques resulted in hard faults or high faults. The reason for this is that the technique was done quite low to the ground and very tight, so there wasn't any room for Uke to set up. Falling is a real challenge, and it challenges a lot of people, and it can be painful to learn if you're bumping on the wrong shoulder or hitting the wrong hip or something. But Ukemi is taught in a much more organized fashion here than it was in Japan, which I think helps people out a lot. And in the end, what you learn is so valuable that I think it's really worth sticking it out. And just learning that if you are knocked down, even if it hurts, it's not the end of the world. You can stand up and you can do something else. And I think that's important. Shingu style for Shomanuchi Idimi Nage standing was related to what we did with Suwariwaza. Begins with Nage projecting energy at Uke along their line of vulnerability. Uke covers that vulnerability, but this has opened a new mutual vulnerability. Therefore, I must move. I move by stepping back alongside my partner here, and then by reorienting and stepping straight back, I create a kind of hole for her to fall into. Therefore, it's not necessary for me to drag her anywhere. I'm not trying to go down with her, but once I'm here, by moving, accepting her toward my center, I can move in, and then by moving back, I catch her in this hole, around and down. Okay, slowly. This way. And down. Okay. Thank you. Okay. When a person has extended themselves like this, in this way, in a triangular stance, they have set up inherent patterns of motion by assuming this stance. One problem with this technique, okay, is that people often go from here, they do a kind of roundhouse step behind and lose connection, center connection. So I don't want to lose the center connection. I want to move in like this, then here, then back, then around, and then down. If I try to jump in here, I'm very vulnerable to here. Okay? So I don't want to go around. I want to ground his energy and move in. Then drop my hips. My hand goes up at the same time. It's very important. Otherwise, we move in, and then we go down together. We come up together. It's like hauling around a sack of potatoes. Okay, so here, my hand is going to go up, my hip will go down, and I catch him on a spiral. Thank you very much. Relationship is always a dynamic thing between human beings. We have to know where to place our heart, our attention, and our bodies physically in relation to our partners in life, whether they're our enemies or our friends. Doesn't make much difference, but we have to have an understanding of how we might possibly have a commonality, where we might look in the same direction, where we might have the same goal or the same view. If I'm very off balance to begin with, it's hard for me to move in any way that helps her, let alone helps me. So my first movement is not to try to throw her, destroy her, take her balance, or otherwise mess with her. My first movement is always to place myself back into balance, to ground my own energy down, to see then how to connect myself and my partner. An attack normally is to throw yourself out of balance. You may not think of it that way because you may think that you're very in balance and very steady with your attack. But the nature of attack is to aggress outside into somebody else's territory. So when you have that nature of attack, you become vulnerable. And it's the duty, I think, of an Aikidoist to learn how to move in a fashion that puts your partner back in balance as well as yourself. And their balance will be restored at the end of their properly taken Ukemi. So one thing about Kokunag, that particular Kokunag in Shingu, is that we did not rush each other quite so much going in like that. But as the person came to us, we had the sensation of drawing back into our own space and moving them toward us. So once again, the technique was taking place in your own space with your own balance well established so that you weren't out aggressing in someone else's space or pushing at them. also have same element of knowing where to place your body in relation to your partner's body and where to extend your hand so that it gets caught by their hand. One thing that would happen in our Shingu training is if we extended and the person did not catch the hand, we would catch the hand and go in to show the area of vulnerability. So it was actually to their advantage to try to control that hand once extended. There was, however, an important point. If I overextended, if I actually tried to attack her, then I would be taken off balance. So I had to catch her. This means every extension has an inherent invitation in it. It is not push, pull, okay? But it's an invitation. So the extension has the return path built into it. Okay? So and every technique had awareness of where our partner was open in relation to ourselves. It was also in there. So, for example, center, cutting here, moving here, here, and then down. And this was built into how how the techniques were described to us, so that we wouldn't do things like this and wind up like that with our partner. This is always my favorite. I'd go like this, and and somebody's fist would be right in my face or my ribs or something like that. So. Okay, so it's a very good education on how to place your body in relation to your partner's moving body. In Tenshinage, we're taking our partner's energy, we're putting it down, and we're putting it up, and we're reuniting it behind our partner. Dori is kind of a silly so-called attack, right? Because who would come up and grab both hands, leaving, of course, feet and knees free? But we use it because having both of our hands taken gives us more of a sense of being trapped or immobilized. And instead of going, oh, just this, knowing that she can, in this position, kick me, encourages me to cover and to move off the line and down. Once again, since we're offering both of our arms, we still have to focus on our partner's center. Okay, but what we're going to do here is we're going to just take the person moving to the side and allow them in, okay, and then down. So rather than us progressing forward and forward into their space, I'm going to actually move to the side and allow her to progress toward me into a spot where I can throw her without a lot of effort. Okay, rounding down, rounding up, and down. Also, an important factor was that if you're going to open and allow the person to come toward your center, if I want her to be right here, I obviously have to move. Okay? I don't want to open a door, invite a guest to my house, and stand in the doorway. I'll open the door and I will step aside. So in this fashion, we would continuously be off the line, but on track with our partner's center, like that. Okay? Idimi, Tenaga Idimi in Shingu was always taught from this mutual harmony. My right foot or left foot is forward here. And I would move out to the side and then forward. Hard fall was not done out of this in Shingu. A backward roll was done. So moving here, here, here. The emphasis was on learning how to really ground our own energy, which would be grounded down our tailbone, down the back foot into the earth, freeing this foot for a side step. Weight would shift to this foot, which allowed the person to come in even closer, and then down, like that. So it was a little bit like breathing, like that. That to shift weight into the spine is not to lean over backwards. If I try to shift weight by leaning over, I'll be pushed. But if I just ground it down, she could push, a push, a push, a push, a push, and she can let go suddenly. And it doesn't make any difference. Okay. But if I'm leaning back, she will push me over. If I'm pushing back to maintain my space, and she pulls, it pulls me off balance. So I have to be in a neutral position, but a position that's dynamic, that's grounding all that energy down through my spine. Tenkan form of this would start from the opposite harmony with our partner, my right foot, her right foot, and I would ground down through the spine, weight on the back foot, and then I would step back and around, and then down. So the emphasis is not on trying to pull her around, but to go down my own spine. Okay? So my training would be to be in my own space and grounded in my own space. This is another place where this mutual loop of energy you feel between you is very useful. Because if I just see how her energy is going down my back, okay, it softens everything up. And then I could spiral this up while grounding this hand down. Given the movement of Aikido, it has a natural, potentially healing effect. And this isn't to mean that doing Aikido you never suffer an injury or something like that, or never have a bad moment on the mat. But in general, Aikido practice done with the intent to move harmoniously, with a kind of open-hearted feeling to your partner, with just the exhilaration that comes from Aikido movement, people should feel, tired but kind of happy at the end of class. There's something in the quality of Aikido movement that can really give you a very positive feeling. We're going to start from a static position with the Ushido kata tori. When you stand with the person behind you, you want to be sure you're in harmony and not standing like this. So standing in harmony, already potential movement is expressed. From here, lowering your hips, you go off to the side, and then you spiral straight down and through. So again, from a static position, you're in harmony. You want to relax down, and when you relax down, you raise up, moving to the side, then straight back. There's a natural Ukemi in there, and down. It's very, very simple, straightforward movement. Okay. So the elements we want to work on here, from our static position, is to feel how still we can be in communication with our partner's center even though they're behind us. And what we want to do first is to move off the line, okay, and then without turning in on them, which will allow them to grab you around the neck, but just to go straight down your own line, rotates them forward and moves them all into this area of vulnerability, and then you can go down like that.
And then you can also sit here and do. Moving more from speed, here, you allow the person in, they run into your atemi, and then they go down. So as a person comes here, you still connect with the center, and you allow them in, and then down. Like that. So once again, catching the center, allowing them in. Now, if you've calculated right, just when they get to here, you will already have Sankyo on them. And all you have to do is continue down. So here, just by going straight down, you are out and he's forward of you right away. So it throws him forward for you to go straight down. And then you can do Ukyo, Sankyo, whatever, Nagi, whatever technique you want to do. In this case, we're going for Sankyo, so this cuts right in on the spiral that we're working on. Long arms. Okay? And other Ushido techniques also operate on a similar principle, that you want to get off the line and get the person out in front of you to deal with them. If we go, Pam, let's say we go Ushido Tekubi Dori, and we want to do Idimi Nage. Okay. This is all oriented on center to center to center. I'm offering my hand low, and she's grabbing it low. And I'm moving this foot back, but I slide in so that I have the opportunity to go up and down my own center. I'm sliding in and around. And then Idimi Nage. I think this organizing principle up and down your center line is important because we have a tendency to do things like crank our arm, go up over our head, get down and bend over, going for our partner, raising up, leaning over them when we throw. But actually, all we want to do is raise them up and up, down, right up and down the center. Another one we do is Ushido Tekubi Dori Kubishime. Kubishime. In this one, the guy's going to have you like this, and there's a tendency to try to get out of it or to be overwhelmed by it. But once again, when the person approaches you, you want to organize along your center principle so that when you go down here, okay, it's along your center line. Okay, like that. So always everything bring to the front, bring to the center, connect with the center. When is it that they get this second hand? I want them to get the second hand when it's out in front of me, not when it's behind me. So as far as possible, I'll never go like this, offering my hand so I can be trapped like that. But here, I energize this hand and I sweep it around. Okay? Here, I energize this hand, sweep it, that's okay. Just sweep. So you do want to choose, just as in all other Aikido techniques, you're not a passive target for Uke. So here, you notice she got to it when it was here, and that's what I would like. Okay. So that means I must always move my hip to the side, like that. So I'm stepping back, I step to the side. I'm entering and offering my hand like that. Many people just have their hand vaguely out there, and then they can get caught. Hi. So you also build up speed on their part. Ushido kata tori is like that too. So you can build up speed with this particular motion. This is important because when the person's behind you, if they linger behind you, they have many opportunities for atemi, and it's very dangerous for you. So the idea with Ushido tori is not to try to do something with somebody behind you, but your initial movement is to rearrange your bodies, okay, so that she's not directly behind you. Oh, sorry, it's my fault for very long. This is a technique you can use to really explore how much freedom you actually have when you've had a grip of both hands on your hand, which feels very, very immobilizing. And our tendency when we feel trapped is to look at the trapping elements and to never look beyond that to the freedom which always is there somewhere. This is also a real test of being able to keep your partner closely related to yourself even though you're doing a very large movement. So when the person comes to grab the arm, you want to connect with the center. This hand will rise up as your hips go down. So you rise up here, and this goes around back to home base with this hand continuing to pick up the energy that's coming. As it comes down, this hand then picks up that descending energy to raise it up and go over. So this is what we're working with, is a continuous stream. This is going up. As you go down, it goes around, you pick up that energy, and this falls through and then down. So this is what we're working on. In the beginning of working with this, once again, we want to establish our principles of connection to our partner, wide view, open-hearted, plugging into the center, and then just relaxing down the spine and allowing this to come up. Just allowing it to come up, not fighting it. Then you turn and you just open up like a flower bloom in here. Then you feel how energy is rising up out of the earth, and it's going to turn over and it's going to come down on his neck, going out his arm and your arm, expressing itself up and then down. Here, open. And then down. So things we want to work on is this feeling of we go down as the hand goes up. Both sides of the body open up. And here you have a tremendous vision of all the free places you could move. But you can feel how this energy will come up and it will go down. So in working with this, we don't try to shove him away and then go in after him. But we're taking him up and around so that we have an extremely free field in which to move. Here, we have to be careful that we just catch her movement. We'll notice that our partner is open at this point. But we don't want to start to lean into their space to catch them because they could take over the technique. What we want to do here is move them into our space, always pulling them or suggesting to them that they would really love to simply fall over in front of us. Here's an opening here. and then down. And if possible, when you're doing Idimi Nage, you try to always keep this closed up here. Okay? And keep the person on you like this so that when you're turning over, there's no gap. And the reason is, if there comes a gap here, you're open. Okay? And you can have, the person might just decide to, at this point, to hit rather than to take the fall. And if you're working very fast, it's a very small opening, but somebody experienced can still get you there. So, if possible, you want to have everything in. And you notice how this is all grounded down. Okay? It's kind of closed and tight. In Shingu, Atemi was a real feature of our training. More than Atemi, the idea of ski, of the opening, was a real feature. Atemi doesn't mean just a physical punch, but Atemi means the focusing of your energy at the ski or the opening that you perceive. And so Atemi is kind of called in by that opening. It's not that you decide to punch somebody in the face now, but that your energy will automatically focus at that point. And this might be reflected with a physical movement, or it might be reflected just with the movement of your energy or your attention, which the other person feels. Okay, you have a center-to-center connection with them. But if I just try to go immediately in, we can equally fight it out here. So that rather than going forward, I draw this energy down my spine to raise her up. And then, extending this hand and this hand in Atemi and extension, and move in and direct her down. So here, I don't try to move in, but I actually move back, which raises her up. Then I can move in. So again, Aikido is self-correction. If somebody's got your hand, you don't want to be pulled forward by that or try to charge into their space, but rather accept them as part of a mutual movement of energy. And then you can twirl out, down, and around. One of the things about the Shingu motion about this was that having gotten the person up with a Atemi, we did not step straight ahead and then turn 180 and then go back. But rather, at this point here, we tended to move in at this angle, creating this person up on our back here, and then down, and then throw forward. So this is this angle is really hard for me to learn because I was accustomed to this step, pivot, down, which is a good way to do it. But the thing about this is that it catches them on this motion where they're just totally hooked into falling into your center continuously throughout the technique. So once caught on this here, okay, it's very difficult for them to reverse the technique on you or to take it away. One thing you have to watch out for is if you go in here, and this hand drifts behind your shoulder, then you're completely weak, and it could be taken over. So even though this is extending, these hands, this is extending, it's out still in front of you, and it will cut down in front of you. So that was one element that made the Shingu style different. I think another difference, if you could do a ski here, was that this would be taken here at the elbow to go underneath for Idimi. Whereas I think we used to take it here at the wrist to do kaite. But in Shingu, we'd always come in at the elbow, and actually this was an Ukemi. So what would happen is you go boom, boom, and you would take that, and then you would throw off like that. So when the ski came, you would turn, boom, and then cut, and then go, like that. off the line, cut down, and then forward like that. So that's also an element that you could train with. One of the things it teaches you is that once again, even though he has a powerful thrust, he somewhat opened himself up by that thrust. Cutting the elbow gives you a chance to cut a little bit back toward him. Not a lot, because then you don't want to push him away, but just a little bit in so that he falls into your center. So that, again, you're throwing out from the center, not from the hip or some other location. Kaishiwaza, or the return back of a technique, is not just a matter of agreeing beforehand that the person who attacks will ultimately end up doing the technique, but it is the ultimate expression of your training to observe the ski, or the openings of your partner, and your ability to read through your own body what's happening with your partner's body. Aikido is beyond technical brilliance. Aikido is a profound spiritual path, and that nature has to be expressed all the time in what you're doing. So it's not just a matter of you're stronger than the guy, or you're meaner, or you could take him out, but is your movement really in harmony with the situation? Is it entirely appropriate to that moment? Is it a movement which ultimately brings you together in a resolution that protects both of you? The idea, our beginning entry into Kaishiwaza is how well do you read your partner's technique. If your Ukemi has been structured to be kind of independent Ukemi, or too formulaic, too standardized, too combative, you will miss. All those situations cause you to miss what's actually going on. Shomanichi, she takes you down for Ikkyo, you move into here, and you go around and you take her down for Ikkyo instead. And in the beginning, you can practice this as a form, which means that your partner is giving you this technique. Okay? They're not really trying to do Ikkyo on you. Okay, and this introduces you to a basic motion. But what you really need to do is take a technique when it's there. And this means that you have to have time to train with people who will try to do Ikkyo on you. But if you just try to resist back and take it over, it winds up being a fight, a kind of competition. And if your training descends to the level of competition, then you're out of the realm of Aikido. You can still be in the realm of technical brilliance, but you're out of the realm of Aikido. If we go into Ikkyo, and she really tries to take me for Ikkyo, ouch. Then you don't necessarily do the standard technique. You do what's there. Okay? So as she started to take me for Ikkyo, her energy went out there for just a second. So I extended it out more. And then I could bring it back. So it's not necessarily that I go here and I wait till here, and then I left up there. But the moment that the opportunity is there, that's the moment you have to take. If you practice only one way, Ikkyo, reverse Ikkyo, then if she gets a really good Ikkyo on you to here, well, you give up. Okay? And the thing is that her Ikkyo might be good to here, and then she might slacken off. And if mentally you've thought, oh, she's got it, instead of just non-judgmentally reading her continuously, you might miss a later opportunity to take it over. Or you might miss an earlier opportunity to take it over. Advanced people, when they're practicing, they'll see openings. And sometimes it's appropriate to do Kaishiwaza, but sometimes not. For example, if you're in a class being instructed by somebody who's trying to teach Shomanuchi Ikkyo, you can read that your partner's open at a certain point, but you don't want to just reverse them all the time. This will make your partner unable to continue their Shomanuchi Ikkyo practice. However, learning or just putting that away in the filing cabinet for future reference will make you more sensitive when it comes time and the teacher says, okay, now we're going to do Kaishiwaza, or where you might have a free practice or an after-class practice where you're in agreement with your partner that you will each try to reverse the technique when appropriate.